What's going on, guys? So, today I was just going to review chapter 1109 and 1108, but 1109 really was the tipping point for me. There have just been so many issues in One Piece over the past couple years that have just really accumulated recently, and I'm very worried because, and I mean it when I say this, I think the ending of One Piece will be more hated than Attack on Titan. I think it will be like Game of Thrones, like levels of hate, and some people will be like, well, obviously, like it's the most popular manga ever. It's like second highest selling comic book ever. But, just because it's the most popular thing doesn't mean a bunch of people like have to hate it. It can just end good. And then, you have a couple of stupid people who are like, well, that was dumb. But like most people would think it was good, if it was really just like it had its shit together, because Oda's capable of good writing. We all know this. But so 1108, right? This was like one of the first like big, or not first big things, but like recent big things that has happened is the panel of Luffy just face palming the Gorosei and holding Kizaru in his other hand. Again, like Gear 5 has really just, those stakes are gone because he just clowns on everybody. Like, it doesn't feel like a competition at all. The only reason anybody seems like they stand a chance is because Luffy is still doing the thing since day one, where even though he has like Mr. Fantastic powers, and now that he has Toon Force powers, he still refuses to just grab people and throw them into the open ocean when it's right there. So like they're really lucky that he's just kind of like a fool. But yeah, so the admirals they've kind of been like a joke for a while, and now the Gorosei, who I thought was actually going to be a really big intimidating guy, I thought he would fight Luffy, give him a bit of a challenge, and they would kind of like barely escape, and then Kizaru would fight like Sanji or somebody. But man, he's just clowning on both of them. And then 1109 happens, and it gets worse because he just turns them into like pancakes for like a gag, and he throws them away, and they hit Kizaru at least like hits the boat, and the Gorosei guy just like comes back to him, and I'm like, oh my god, like he missed the ocean again when he actually threw them at it. Like, it's just like, it's crazy, okay, that in 30 years of this manga, not one devil fruit user has died of drowning, when that's like the original chapter 1 threat. I think that kind of speaks to a bigger problem, that Oda refuses to kill anybody. I would actually argue he's only ever killed one big person in the entire thing, and that would be Whitebeard. People will say Ace too. I'll get to that later. I would argue Ace is basically still alive. But going back to the more recent stuff, so Gear 5, my two big problems with it are that it's very unearned, and like I said before, it just obliterates the stakes. So I would say it's unearned because, Gear 2, Gear 3 just kind of come out of nowhere. Enies Lobby's cool and all, but they really do just come out of nowhere. And then Gear 4, there's like some implied training for, but it really, like, again, just kind of pops up. And the issue with Gear 4 is it's like a failed Super Saiyan, and I don't mean like, oh, Dragon Ball Z is so much better. I mean, like, he powers up into it, and then he doesn't beat Doflamingo, so you're kind of like, what's the point? And then he powers up into it again, and then he gets him, and so like it takes a couple tries, so you're like, and then Gear 5 I was really excited for because I knew about it, and I thought it was going to be this really cool new combination, like this perfection almost of Gear 4. I thought that's what it was supposed to be, because, we got Gear 2, Gear 3, and then Gear 4 combines them, and I thought Gear 5 was going to be like an even better one. And he does so much training through Wano, because he gets beaten down like over and over by Kaido. And none of his training was really for Gear 5, though, so now I was getting worried. And then they started talking about the prophecy, like Nika, Joy Boy stuff, and I was like, well, oh no, like here it comes. And then he's on his deathbed, and he gets Gear 5, and he starts clowning on Kaido, and then he like taps out, he like runs out of energy, and so because he was already dying, and he's like on his deathbed, I'm like, oh, okay, so like now like they're gonna have to come in and kind of like finish the job for him, like he did enough. And then he just gets back up, and he just keeps using Gear 5 like it was nothing. And I'm like, what was even the point? Is there no restriction on it? Like, he just come back? Like, nothing even happened. He passed out, and then he just got back up. Like, what? It's kind of a similar issue I had with the Katakuri thing, where Katakuri, like, beat Luffy, and because Luffy just refuses to fall down, he just wins, which doesn't really make any sense. But, going back to, again, like, some of the more recent stuff, so I think Gear 5 is a big issue. And then just these fraud characters, man. Like, this goes back to how Oda refuses to kill anybody. So it leads to all these characters feeling like jokes. Like the three admirals are still around, Kizaru, and like people were trying to say recently, oh, like he might have a face turn, I'm like, what? Like, why would he be a good guy? He's like been shown to be almost like more psychopathic than Akainu even. Back in like Sabaody, he's like a crazy person, and they're like, oh, well, just because like he's dancing in a flashback now with Bonnie and Kuma and Vegapunk, he's gonna be a good guy all of a sudden. Like, what are you talking about? And he just killed Vegapunk too, so you better not just get off. And yeah, so we got him, and then this is what really killed me, is this panel of Dragon in chapter 1109 just staring and like just saying nothing again. Like, it's sad how you can make a compilation of Dragon just staring and doing nothing for like his past 100 mysterious appearances. And, you know, yeah, other characters too, like Smoker, who they haven't even mentioned, like hasn't been around, and that's kind of the problem, is like they bring up Tashigi again and Smoker's not even there. This guy was like the original Marine. He was the original kind of like interesting villain. He had some nuance to him, and he hasn't done anything cool since Marine Ford, when he's like all mad at Luffy because he blew up Eni's lobby and he killed a bunch of soldiers and stuff. He's like, you motherfucker, like you've gone too far. But yeah, and it's like, I don't need my characters to always be punching people, but I think it's a little weird that, you know, we're introducing like Green Bull and Fujitora, but we can't have Smoker back in the story. Like, the last time we saw him was Punk Hazard, and Punk Hazard is just disrespectful, to be honest, to him and Tashigi's character. And going back to Egghead, you know, we had Lucci show up with CP9 before Kizaru even showed up, and this was like really like big clown stuff. Like, I remember when they showed up, I was like, they are not trying to do this right now. Like, this better be a gag, because Lucci is just like, he got beaten by Luffy before hockey was even a thing. Like, he got beat in 2004. I'm like, why is he back here now? Like, he's a big bad guy. Like, he's already been clowned on. I don't understand why they're trying to make him a threat again. Like, Zoro's been fighting him off screen for like 10 chapters. And you're like, what? Like, Zoro should be able to cook this guy in 2 seconds. Are you kidding? Oh my god. Like Frankie or like Jinbei should be able to like scrap with goddamn Lucci. Like, he's just such a joke. And okay, so off of Kaido and like Gear 5 and all that, there's the other issue with the lore. Like, everybody knows about Nika now. Like, they just mention the name and the legend and the dance, and you know, we got other people like, oh god, what's his name, Emporio. He mentioned like Emu and stuff, and I'm like, why do people all of a sudden just know about these earth-shattering secrets? It's like if in real life there was a big revelation at Area 51 that only a couple of like secret agents knew about, and then suddenly it's like just public knowledge for a couple of people. Like, that would be insane. Like, why does everybody know about these earth-shattering secrets now? And the whole retcon of Gear 5 again, like, I'm sorry, I know I'm talking about it a lot, but like, that it's his fruit, you know, like Nami or Usopp could have eaten it and they just also would have gotten it. Like, what? Like, that's lame. Okay, I'm already not too big a fan of the devil fruits, you know, because like all these people who they fit perfectly had to randomly find them and stuff. But man, and I this is another part of the world building. Like, how are devil fruits even like a myth? Like, I know this is kind of just a symptom of him writing early on, but people are like, oh, devil fruit. I'm like, what the hell? Like, how can you do that? It's like, haven't I heard of the 4 emperors that control half your planet that like all have devil fruits? Well, Shanks doesn't, but like, come on. Like, the Whitebeard who can like break the world into like glass, and so he's causing earthquakes in the damn air and stuff. And there's a real life Candyland, and people are like, this is like in real life. People be like, nuclear weapons, like, do those really exist? Like, what are you talking about? Okay, so now I kind of want to go into the problems with, you know, some of the other characters and how I think this is all accumulating. So I was talking about the admirals before. So Kizaru, he's just been clowned on, and they're trying to turn him into a good guy. At least that's what some people think, even though he's like a psychopath. And then you got Aokiji, who I still think is pretty cool. They haven't really like done anything too bad with him. I think if his whole motivations are revealed properly, he'll remain kind of like one of the best characters in the manga. Akainu, original big bad, I was super hyped to see. I was like, oh man, the Mega Marine and stuff. And then He kills Ace, which is like pretty crazy. Even though I'm not a fan of how that all went down. I think it's weird that they were escaping and then Ace gets tricked again by like some childhood insults. I know they were trying to show kind of like, oh, Ace is a screw up and Luffy has to learn from that. You can't just talk big and then keep screwing up over and over. But, Luffy didn't really learn from that. He has continued to screw up over and over, almost immediately in the time skip, putting his crew in danger again when they don't want to be. And he never really suffers the consequences for it, which is quite annoying. But, so those are like the three like big admirals. Like Aka Inu hasn't done anything for the past 10 years, again, besides just sit behind his desk and yell, which is, pretty frustrating to see. And then, Dragon, I kind of mentioned before, is just like a goofball. Like, he can't look at his own kid, but he can adopt Sabo and have him be a second in command. Ace, Sabo, and Luffy are just such a frustrating trio because Ace barely gets any screen time. He's cool and all, but then his only purpose is to kind of like teach Luffy this big lesson about, maybe being more responsible and getting stronger, being more prepared and knowing more about your world. And some of that's kind of Ace's fault. Like Ace doesn't even tell Luffy what a Viver card is. He just hands it to him and then doesn't tell him what it is. And then when it's like dying out, Luffy doesn't go after him right away. He has to like be told he's locked up. And he even says some stupid thing. He's like, Ace has got his adventures, I got mine. It's like, what? Like, you're not going to go help him? What? That's messed up. And yeah, so then he ends up dying. It's a big tragic thing, but Luffy doesn't really learn from it. And big time skip happens, and they're at Sabo Odi, and nobody even talks about it. Like, not a single member of Luffy's family is like, oh, dude, like, I'm really sorry that your brother got his ribcage blown out right in front of you, and you have a permanent scar of the tragedy across your thorax. Like, no, like nobody says anything. Nobody gives him, like, a crisp hug or something, and it's just like, bro, like, that's terrible and stuff. Like, they cry about it, like, off screen. It's so weird, and then you have some stuff like after it, Fishman Island, where Jinbei is trying to warn Luffy about the new world. Like, he won't even read the damn newspaper. I don't even think Luffy can read, but man, it's just insane. Someone who's so obsessed with being a pirate and being the pirate king, like, can't be bothered to give half a shit about any of the stuff that's going on in the pirate world. Very weird. But man, and yeah, so Sabo basically just shows up and replaces Ace. Luffy loses a brother with fire powers and a cool hat, and he gets a new brother with fire powers and a cool hat who's barely around again. This is why I say, like, Oda has only ever killed one big character, being Whitebeard. I know Kaido and Big Mom recently, but they both kind of got clowned on and ruined in their final moments, and they might be back still, so jury's out, but I'll give him credit on those for now. He did kill 2 emperors, and I like the whole replacement of like Luffy and Buggy being emperors. I think that's pretty cool. And yeah, man, it's just what else can I talk about? So there are too many villains. This goes again into the whole Oda can't kill anybody thing. He just killed 2 emperors, but there's still too many villains. Because we got, like, all the admirals are left, all the Gorosei, we got Imu, we got Shanks, Green Bull, Fujitora, like, all these people, like, the other crews, not to mention, like, a lot of the Straw Hats have got nothing to do, like, this is the Egghead arc, and, like, Robin and Frankie, who have connections to Egghead, have done nothing this arc. They have got nothing to do, and I think that's a big mistake, and everyone's counting on Elbaf next arc for Usopp to finally do something for the first time since, like, 2009, which is very annoying. But man, I don't see it happening. And this is why I say I think One Piece is going to have one of the most hated endings ever, because there are too many characters around still, so they can't all get like proper character work and screen time. There are too many villains around, and I don't think Oda's going to let other characters fight them, so Luffy's going to have to be the guy that just punch them all. And then I'm like, are half these guys even going to be a challenge? Like, he's already clowning on a Gorosei, with Gear 5. So I'm like, if his crew actually just worked with him, these guys would be smoked by now. Like, we'd be cool, but they're just not fighting that smart. So that's the only reason there's really tension, is because the characters aren't doing things they can easily do. And man, it's really sad to see, because, JJK is in a similar spot right now where, it has a couple things it could just tweak and then he could fix it. But like I said, like, One Piece just has decades and decades of these issues. And I think it really is a big problem that Oda hasn't sorted out any of them, and we're continuing to just kind of goof around until it all collapses in on itself. So, it's going to take a lot of really big course correction and like sudden waking up to really change Oda's mindset about all this. Like, he'd have to start writing almost completely differently. And some people will be like, oh, well, then that's not Oda. That's not his story. And it's like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, why can't we have conversations between the characters and have them, the other members of the crew, do things and be important, and start actually killing people? I think we just killed Vegapunk, but there's the other Vegapunks around, and I have a feeling they're going to, like, keep his brain or something. So, jury's out on a couple of things, but I'm very concerned about the series, and I don't want it to plummet and be another thing that everybody rightfully despises at the end. So those are just kind of my thoughts, my rambling. I know it was a lot, but y'all have a good one.